come back to Costa Rica about once a year during the sort of summer dry season here, and it's so good to be back to climb with my friends and also to test myself on these trees that I've been climbing for years, and to see how much stronger I've gotten, to see how much more confident I've gotten. And specifically, there's been this one tree, I think I'm confident in saying it's the hardest tree climb that we found so far. It's this tree called Porcupine that was first ascended by Rafi, then later ascended by Izzy.
It's probably like low 513.
Wow.
I don't know if I had to put a rating on it, at least 12 plus.
That's pretty hard.
It's very sustained, and like the feet are just all smears.
And I've tried it countless times over the years. I remember first trying it when Rafi and Izzy did the first ascent, and it was just so hard for me. I really didn't have the forearm strength, I think, to grip onto sort of these slopey pinches. But over the years, as I come back, I keep on getting a little bit stronger. And this year, I sent it, finally. Porcupine is incredibly difficult, and that difficulty is really concentrated in the first 20 feet of the tree, where there's this sort of two-fist off-width size crack. And the easiest way that we've found to get up this crack is to lay back on it, pushing as hard as you can with your feet, pulling as hard as you can with your hands, sort of creating this tension. That really gets you through the first half, and then once you get to the sort of second half of the lie back, I like to reach my left hand around the side, and it's a really sloping side, like you really get no, hold or anything, but you sort of use the compression of your right hand and your left hand to just sort of inch your way up the second half, and then finally reach the left hand up to the jug. The next section has sort of some fun, cruxy underclings. Then you get to a jug where you can shake it out for quite a bit. And from here, like the next 15 feet or so are kind of awkward, like side of the tree climbing. Like you really could, in one move, like go around to the top and take a full rest. We would call that cheating. So the idea is to sort of keep your feet low, and you can keep your hands high on the jugs, but you have to keep your feet low and just sort of pace them on the vertical, slippery tree surface. Then you get to sort of this, almost squat-like stance where you can kind of, or maybe more of like a frog stance.
So pumpy.
You can really shake it out here, get a full rest, and get ready to fire the last 10 feet of legit 5'11" climbing. The holds are pretty good, but they're a little spaced out apart, so you kind of have to orient your body, do some body positioning. Recently, I've been experimenting with this beta of actually going feet first, inverting, having my feet swing over and hooking on sort of the final glory jugs, and using that to propel my hands closer. And that beta has sort of a fun climactic end where you drop both your feet down, dangling by your hands, let go with one hand to spin my body around, and then reach up to the next few holds, and then finally paste your feet back on, do the last few moves to the final top out. Hey guys, so before we get into the second half of this video, I want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of this video, the people that made this happen, Rogne. Now, I've been wearing Rogne clothes a lot this past year, specifically this rose-colored sloper tee, but by far my favorite have been these harness pants. They are hands down the best pants for climbing because they're flexible and lightweight, but also durable. And the best part is that they're stylish enough that I don't have to change out of them for date night. I genuinely love that Rogne makes functional climbing clothes that also have this subtle and sophisticated style. And for that reason, they have really become my go-to clothes this past year. So if you're interested in trying out some Rogne apparel for yourself, then click the link that I put down in the description and use the code NOAH15 for 15% off all apparel and chalk. All right, thank you, Rugne, and back to the video. When I sent it, it felt so good. I honestly feel like I had this feeling of like, wow, that was pretty easy, you know? Which I think is really more of a sign that I've really perfected it over the years. I've gotten stronger. And on that day, I was able to just do it perfectly. And I've been able to do it a couple times since then. And I started to get the idea after a couple of those sends, like, oh, maybe this tree would be a good one to do without ropes. Yeah, obviously that's a little bit scary, but it could also be really fun and sort of this like pure climbing experience. You know, I think another thing about this is like, we climb trees, you know, most of the time with ropes, 95% of the time with ropes. There's something about climbing trees with ropes that is cool, that's awesome, that obviously is giving you access to this amazing world that would be dangerous to access without that equipment. But at the same time, there's something that feels really pure about tree climbing. The essence of tree climbing, especially how we did it as kids, was, yeah, no gear. You climb as high as you feel confident to climb. If you need to down climb, you'll have to down climb. And maybe tree climbing in its essence, in its purest form, is done without ropes. And I think that's why the idea of this excited me. It wasn't about pushing my mental limits of getting super scared. It was just sort of about going off and just being a kid in the woods again and just climbing something that I think I could climb. Okay, so I'm at the tree. I'm at Porcupine. Yeah, this is really the first session climbing here where I've been actively thinking about maybe soloing this tree. And today's gonna be all about just figuring out how I feel now that I'm thinking in that train of thought. Today, maybe a couple more sessions are gonna be all about sussing out this section, which involves a layback, pulling on pretty slopey holds, nothing really too secure. And yeah, it's very high fall potential in that first 20 feet, but if I can just work it and feel really strong, really solid on the technique, then I think soloing the entire tree in one go would feel a lot more manageable. There were a couple times during that process of experimenting, sort of playing around with the idea in my head, climbing it and seeing what it would be like, where I was like, this is actually too hard. Like the lieback, no matter how perfectly you do it, is still really hard and you get really pumped. And so I think that feeling of being pumped on the rope, thinking about not having a rope, is really scary. And definitely after one session of sort of working the lieback section a lot, I was actually convinced that I would never do this, that I would just walk away like, okay, I thought about this idea, I sort of experimented with it in my head, I put in the work to dial it in, but even still, it's too scary. And then there was this day where I had, you know, done a climb earlier in the day that I felt really good about. It was another climb, another tree project that I was working up towards, sort of this scary one with a little bit of a run out and some funky gear placement. And I had done that earlier in the day and I felt really good on that route. And I was sitting at a cafe working on my computer. I was hanging out with my girlfriend Vivian, and the thought sort of popped into my head of, hey, Porcupine is on the way home. It's on my walk home. Maybe I could just pop into the woods and touch the holds and see how I feel. No pressure. I sort of started touching the holds just to sort of start gathering my thoughts, and I was feeling good. And so I just took off my shoes and, you know, I could feel my heart starting to beat faster. Like obviously the fear response was kicking in. So I took a few minutes to myself to just sort of calm down, sit down, close the eyes, breathe as much as I could. You know, not trying to like tell myself that this isn't going to be scary, but maybe just trying to reassure myself and remember that I've got this. Super strong these days. I've climbed this route so many times, and really if I go at it and go at it in a confident way, then I will be able to do that. And it was sort of that moment that I think was the moment that clicked, where I was like, I'm truly ready for this. It's like, if I'm confident that I'll be confident, then I'm gonna do the route.